Good morning, everyone. We will get started here in just another minute. We're going to let people uh, signing on go ahead and complete. We're expecting a big group today and excited to have you with us. So we will be starting shortly. All right. Well, I have two after. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Office of Illinois Works Effective Transition Services and working with DOL Registered Apprenticeship Programs. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. Over the next 3 hours, you're going to have an opportunity to learn more about the specific guidance for Illinois Works Transition Services. One of the things that you have asked us to do each time we have one of these webinars is to clearly articulate if there is a specific target audience for these sessions. In response to that, you should have received a communication articulating the audience for this session, which includes transition services coordinators, transition services staff, individuals that support transition services supervisors, relevant partners based on grantees and referrals. So that's the group that we are targeting today's presentation for. My name is Dr. Jeff Doolittle. I provide support for Illinois Works through training analysis, and I'm a program coach. I'm also going to be kicking off today's session and leading the Mentimeter section of our presentation. And our primary presenter today, though, is Mr. Dan Martinez. And Dan, would you come on and introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Look forward to talking to you in a little bit.
So Dan's got a lot to cover and brings a lot of valuable background to today's conversation and our input that we're going to be covering today. So we are glad he is back and here. And today we are joined by a team for Illinois Works. And it's a team of passionate experts committed to supporting your pre-apprenticeship program success. Our leader, Dr. Norman Ruano, Deputy Director of Illinois Works. Obviously, you've already were introduced to Mr. Dan Martinez, our grant manager. And also on today is Monica Pruitt. She's our grant manager. We have Dr. Anna Bedard, training analyst and program coach as well. She's going to be helping us with links into chat and also looking at our time. My name is Dr. Jeff Doolittle, again, training analyst, program coach, supporting part of the presentation. Dr. Carlita Alston is on as well. She's going to be helping monitor chat. You'll see her if you have questions in chat. She'll be helping with that. She is also a training analyst and program coach. And then Dr. Gia Suggs, our professional development lead, is here to start with and then has to drop off for a little bit. But we wanted to just let you know we are surrounded by a team today that has helped put this presentation together. As a course description, our Illinois Works was created as a result of Governor Pritzker's commitment to expanding equity in Illinois construction workforce. This training today is designed to provide grantees with the knowledge, skills, and techniques necessary to deliver effective transition services in alignment with the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program best practices. Now, program staff providing transition services will be able to leverage the experience of other pre-apprenticeship providers and incorporate evidence-informed as well as evidence-based practices. So our objectives for today, by the end of this training, you will be able to walk away from here with an ability to describe the role of the Illinois Works Job Program Act, list the Illinois Works goals in 3 key programs, describe the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship life cycle, describe the Illinois Works staff roles for follow-up and transition services, explain 4 end-of-program statuses available upon completion, list the transition services available through Illinois Works, explain the critical importance of cultivating formal and informal relationships and partnerships, and complete and leverage information from the career assessments. So we have a big list. It extends to listing the components of the DOL Registered Apprenticeship Program, utilizing the Illinois Works heat map, describing the role of the Illinois Works Bid Credit Program as it relates to transition services, listing the options for regularly conducting follow-up, listing the Illinois Works follow-up activities and services, leveraging career assessment information, describing the role of longitudinal studies, and lastly, appropriate updates to the Illinois Works reporting system. So hopefully these are the types of things you're looking to get out of today, because this is what we are going to be covering. All right, so if you have any questions, we will have opportunities for you to engage with us. For those of you who are new to our programming, Illinois Works has provided grantees with a 2024 Grantee Manual as a resource for instructions, guidance, tools, expectations for program design, implementation, and delivery. The valuable resource provides detailed information regarding program completion, transition services, and follow-up services. You can access this resource by using the link that is going to be shared in our chat. Additional information regarding the Illinois Works webinars is available on the Illinois WorksNet site under Archive TA Sessions and Materials. You can access this resource using, again, another link that is going to be added into chat that links you right to those tutorials and training. Any questions regarding these resources? Again, we'll have a chance to discuss those in just a minute. Over the next 3 hours, we are going to take a deep dive into the Illinois Works transition services and follow-up services. And by now, you should have accessed the Illinois Works 2024 Grantee Manual at some point. If not, go ahead and pop that open. You'll want to look through that. The 2024 Grantee Manual is the resource for instructions, guidance, tools, and expectations for program design, implementation, and delivery. You'll notice that it references to this document during, we're going to constantly kind of be pinpointing back to that document throughout today's training session. And most of our Illinois Works sessions always are pointing back to the 2024 Grantee Manual. So resource you definitely want to take advantage of. For today, if you are in the Illinois Works Grantee Manual, you can go to the section 8, Program Completion, Transition Services, and Follow-Up, and that really will point you to the content that's in today's presentation. I want to let you know we are recording. Please note the session is being recorded and being made available for review on the Illinois Works Partner Guide website after today. We will also share the TA webinar schedule later in this presentation. The link to the Partner Guide is available there in the chat for you. Thank you, Anna, for dropping that in. And we are going to just pause for a second here, and any questions before we proceed to the next session. If so, please feel free to drop those into chat or come off mute and let me know.
There are no questions, Jeff.
All right, so let's keep moving ahead then. So for this next section, our objectives are, by the end, you'll be able to utilize WebEx functionality, fully engage in the training, and identify what you hope to learn from this training. We do this just to make sure that you can fully engage in today's session. So using the raise hand feature, by show of hands, who is comfortable with using WebEx? Go ahead and raise your hands. Look at this, love it. Not seeing everybody, but I see a large group. More of you guys are adding in your emojis. Excellent. All right. Well, in order to be fully engaged, those of you that may not be familiar with this, I want to make sure that you have some basic functionality down to keep you fully engaged. So there is a mute and unmute button. And you might want to come off mute sometimes, so make sure you understand where that is. Also, there's a start stop video. That's there for your own camera. You're going to have the ability to raise your hand, and you guys have been doing that. All of you that have, thank you. Feel free to drop other emojis in for Dan or I as we're going through the presentation. Chat is one that we are going to be using, so you want to make sure that you understand where that button is and can pull that up. And then we are not going to be using the group feature today. We also use Mentimeter. Those of you that have been in our sessions before know that we use Mentimeter quite a bit. So I want you to go out there right now. We're going to use it to start our program. Go to menti.com and then enter 3423380. that information has been dropped into chat at this moment. You can actually click that one link there at the bottom that says, it says enter and then link. And if you click that, it'll take you directly to our Mentimeter for today. We're going to be using. So this is what it'll look like on your screen as you're logging in. So go to menti.com and use that code. Again, we want everyone to go out here at this point and use Mentimeter because this will keep us all engaged throughout the session. So my first question for you, what is the name of your organization? And then your name and your name of your organization, and then add an asterisk if you've previously attended an Illinois Works webinar. So just your name, the name of your organization, and an asterisk if you've previously attended an Illinois Works webinar. And I guess if you want to have fun, you can add a number of asterisks for how many sessions you have attended. So if you've attended more than one, you could put in as many asterisks as you've attended. Feel free to do that. Thank you, Jackie. It's great to have you here with Foundation Skills USA. Great to be here. Hector, thank you. Hasia, Ben Krause from Cone Family Services. Oh, a 3-star general there with 3. Vicki Wilkins, great to have you here as well from Southwestern Illinois College. Looks like we have Tamika, Youth Build County, Emily Welsh, Awaken, Carrie from the Danville Area Community College. See Daryl dropping into chat and Linda as well into chat. No, Linda's been to several of these. She's like 5 or 6 stars if I count them up. Scott Terry down in Rock Island. All right. We have Anna Herrera from Chicago. Johnny Robinson, Metropolitan Family Services. Nashley from YMCA. There we go, in Metropolitan. Susan with 3 stars there from Foundation Skills. Sarah Cleveland, another Rock Island. Oh, got like 4 stars there. Awesome. Jacqueline, great. All right. So if you can, everyone, love you to get into Mentimeter. We're going to have some questions and some polling. So I hope you've got the group here. It looks like we have a good group. I'm going to move ahead. We've got 19 of you in here. So my next question is a multiple choice. And this is going to be a chance for you to let us know what is the role are you fulfilling within your organization. So you can vote for what kind of a role. We want to know who we have here in the audience today. So as we've gotten to know some of your names, this is again, what is your role? What's the breakdown here? So looks like we have the majority of us. Dan is going to be your transition service coordinators, then some transition staff and transition services supervisors. But great, love to see these votes coming in and the graphs changing as they go. It's always nice with Mentimeter. All right, getting some further information here, getting a few more in. Great. This is great. All right, let's move ahead. We're going to move on to the next question. All right. And this one is another Mentimeter question here. Is there anything in particular you were hoping we would cover today? So I gave you a long list of objectives, right? All the things we are going to cover, but this is a chance for you to tell us, is there anything, what did you want to take away? What are 1 or 2 things that you want to make sure that we would cover today in today's session? Obviously, we have a plan of all this great content we're going to give you, but if you would share, what is it that you were hoping that we would cover? So this is a free form opportunity. Just pick some topics that seem important to you and drop those in. So this will help us know where to lean into the presentation as Dan's presenting and make sure that we get you that information. And this will help us target our time together. So we have building relationships with non-union DOL companies, effective transition processes, best practices in successfully transitioning into DOL, how to connect with more apprenticeship programs for graduates. I want to hear from contractors that hired Illinois Work grads. Okay. Well, we don't have any contractors lined up for you today in this session, but we can think about how we can share that information as well about feedback we've gotten. Building relationships, further DOL wraps, apprenticeships, non-union, sponsored-based unions, effective transition practices, coordinations with DOL. Great. It's good. Keep going. Let's see. I think there were 19 others of you, so I want to make sure we hear from all of you. How to deal closed union halls. Interesting. Yeah. Paying rep application fees as a transitional service for our graduates. What can we do there? Some of these might be good for your grant managers as well. Building relationships with further DOL reps, sponsor-based unions. Got a few of that. That's got a few of those in there. Paid apprenticeships, grant expectation requirements. Great. It's a really good list. So 18 responses. Great. Thank you for sharing this and giving us some feedback on what you would like to hear or what transition support can be offered. Great. Definitely going to be hitting that as well. So I'm going to jump back over to the presentation. And I want to get to just some feedback here. If you have additional further comments. So again, we're going to do our best to hit on your questions and your feedback that you've provided for us today. But if you have further comments or feedback, obviously your grant manager's there, but in addition to that, after today's training session, you can email us. The email address is available now. It's going to be added in. It's already there into chat. And you can also reach out to your grant manager again with any questions or comments from today. We'd love to hear those from you. I'm going to pause now. Any new questions come up? Anything that you would like to raise at this point? If not, we're going to proceed ahead.
There are no questions.
Thank you, Carlita. All right. Well, given there's no questions in chat, I am going to now turn the reins over to Dan and have him take the presentation.
All right, well, good morning. So we are going to, start by introducing the Office of Illinois Works, and I know for most of you, I don't know if all of you, but I think most of you are familiar with the Office of Illinois Works and the goals and the other groups within the Office of Illinois Works. But it's important to know that we record these sessions, and so this can be a standalone. It is important that we cover this information, but we will do so briefly for those of you that have already been on it, but thorough enough for those that this is new. So we will describe the role of the Illinois Works Jobs Program Act and talk about the three key Illinois Works programs, discuss the focus and the goals and the role of the life cycle, which hopefully you are all familiar with, even if you're not familiar with the Office of Illinois Works, and then discuss the relationship between DIBE and the Illinois Works core values. So the Office of Illinois Works is housed within the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, otherwise known as DCEO, and it is a top priority of the governor's 5-year economic plan. Unfortunately, data shows that for too long, the construction industry and the trades have not been accessible for diverse communities. Fewer than 10% of the best paid apprenticeships in construction are extended to women and racial and ethnic minorities. And so this new capital funding is set to pave the way for tens of thousands of jobs over the next decade. And the Illinois Works Jobs Program Act was intentionally designed to increase equity and opportunity in capital construction projects and those thousands of jobs. The Illinois Works Jobs Program Act is a statewide initiative to ensure that all Illinois residents have access to state capital projects and careers, including in the construction industry and building trades. And so the goal is to provide contracting and employment opportunities to historically underrepresented populations in the construction industry. And the focus of the Illinois Works Jobs Program Act is to increase the equity and opportunities for those communities, including people of color, women, and veterans. And it's equity along with diversity, belonging, and inclusion that tie the Illinois Work pre-apprenticeship programs core values and requirements together. So in the 2024 grantee manual, there's a table discussing equity and what you can do on page 46 for more information on that. So again, hopefully this is familiar to you. We provide this to everyone from the point of initial contact through our NOFO all the way through our onboarding, and we discuss how this was really developed as a unique and innovative model that not only creates job demand, but then through the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program creates a talent pipeline to fulfill that demand. But then thirdly, provides incentives to contractors and construction-based employers to hire and retain those pre-apprenticeship graduates. So typically, workforce development models will have one or two of these components, and they all work together to substantially impact the workforce. But since the Illinois Works program encompasses all three of these components, it really creates a comprehensive response to workforce development. It's a one-of-a-kind initiative, and it's in a really unique position to make a tremendous difference. It is a program that is viewed not only statewide, but on the national level by other states and by the federal government as a model based on those three components. So the offices that support those components are, of course, the Illinois Works Apprenticeship Initiative, the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program, and the Illinois Works Bid Credit Program. If we achieve our goals, then we will have successfully partnered with community stakeholders to ensure that a career pathway for residents in disadvantaged communities has been provided. We will have provided eligible apprentices with the skills for lifelong job security in a career rather than just single jobs. We will have promoted construction as a viable industry for women and minority communities, and we will have provided the construction industry itself with a skilled workforce for generations to come. And additionally, we will have created new partnerships between state agencies and community organizations. So I had mentioned that we would be looking at the pre-apprenticeship life cycle. Certainly the focus of transition is highlighted toward the end of the life cycle. This life cycle outlines the steps that the participants will take as they move through our pre-apprenticeship programs, and each stage demonstrates an integral step in preparing participants to enroll in the ultimate goal of a DOL Registered Apprenticeship Program. So all stages are essential to participant success. However, program completion, transition services, and follow-up, which are all highlighted in red, are the stages in which grantees really begin to measure their impact. These represent a new phase for the participants and the grantees. So let's talk a little bit about DIBE and the Illinois Works core values. So we certainly believe that successful implementation of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program will integrate diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equity. And the goal is to foster an environment that allows individuals to feel safe, participate fully, develop professionally, and reach their fullest potentials. The Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program is rooted in 6 core values. That's overcoming barriers, empower for resilience and self-sufficiency, impact through outcomes, innovate persistently, build a community of collaboration, and maximize differences. These values are the foundation of the Illinois Works program design and run through all stages of the pre-apprenticeship life cycle, including those 3 key components: completion, transition services, and follow-up. DIBE join all 6 of the Illinois Works core values together and are woven into all program requirements. Program design and implementation should focus on how participants will complete the program successfully, but also on teaching participants long-term skills that will allow them to build the resilience and become self-sufficient so that they can secure a sustainable long-term career. So are there any questions before we proceed to the next section and get into the core of the presentation, program completion and transition?
Okay, Dan, there are no questions.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, during this section, we will talk more about program completion on the pre-apprenticeship life cycle, discuss the training and industry recognized certifications that participants receive upon completion, explain the end of program status available upon completion, describe the Illinois Work services that are deployed post-completion, describe the role of the data entry coordinator, and update the Illinois Works reporting system. Are there any questions about this content before I move on? All right. So looking at the pre-apprenticeship life cycle again, this outlines the steps that participants take as they move through the program. It tracks their progress from initial outreach, application interviews and intake, all through the post-transition follow-up. The program completion is step number 7 on the pre-apprenticeship life cycle. It refers to the conclusion of instructional training. For most participants, program completion will mark their transition to a registered apprenticeship program. By the conclusion of instruction, participants should have received several industry-recognized certifications and training. So these include OSHA 10, First Aid CPR, employability skills, test-taking skills, and then one of 3 nationally recognized certifications, NCCR Core, Trade Futures MC3, or an Illinois Community College Board certification. Some programs will offer additional certifications, such as forklift safety, flagger certification, scaffold safety awareness. These additional considerations are not required for every program, but once a program makes it part of once an organization makes it part of their pre-apprenticeship program, then it becomes a requirement for all participants that attend that program. You can learn more about the additional trainings and certifications on page 124 of the 2024 grantee manual. Though the goal of a successful program completion for all participants, is that instructional training, some participants will have additional needs causing them to unsuccessfully complete program, withdraw from the program, or even be dismissed from the program. While those latter 2 are possible at any point in the program, these statuses are closely linked to exiting the program, and once a participant does exit the instructional phase of the program, it marks the end of their participation in the program. So there are 3 outcomes that are typically defined for participants, and you can identify these statuses in IWRS, and we'll review this with all of the participants or all the grantees. So the first is completion. This occurs when a participant has met all program requirements. You might refer to this as graduation, right? So this marks participants' completion of classroom, construction lab, worksite training, all of those certifications we talked about, even including any optional ones, additional considerations that your particular program had selected, and it recognizes their attainment of all of those certifications. Certainly, we are often invited to some of your graduations, which we love to see. I know, Norman Ruano, our deputy director, certainly likes to be involved with those and celebrate the program participants' successes with you. So thank you to all of those who have continued to invite us to those ceremonies. Another stage is incomplete due to a withdrawal. So while some participants may choose to withdraw from the program before graduation, before that participant withdrawal is finalized, the Student Support Services Coordinator should meet with the participant one-on-one to determine if there are any wraparound or supportive services that can be offered to keep the participant from withdrawing. I think that's, a pretty, self-evident idea that, rather than just allowing an individual to withdraw, programs should be identifying the root cause of that withdrawal and see if that's something that supportive services can assist with. In some cases, that additional support may be able to change their decision. But of course, that's not always going to be possible. So grantees should seek to maintain a positive relationship with the participant, regardless of their final decision and outcome. And if they choose to withdraw, there should be an exit interview conducted. The exit interview questionnaire is in the grantee manual. This will be an opportunity to gain an evaluation of the program overall, key components, and seeking participant feedback. Ask the participant if follow-up contacts would be welcomed, and there might be a future opportunity to re-engage with them and allow them to finish the program. So again, a hard copy of that questionnaire is available in the appendix of the 2024 grantee manual. It's also available on the Illinois Works Partner Guide when Illinois WorkNet is working. I know it's had some issues recently. The other incomplete status is incomplete due to dismissal. So this occurs when the participants fail to comply with the terms of their commitment agreement or they violate your program policies. You must maintain a dismissal policy that outlines a standard for procedure for how and when and why participants can be dismissed. I know I've worked with several grantees throughout the year that have had to dismiss participants, and it is it's a much smoother process. It removes any doubt or concern about the program's right to dismiss individuals when a good thorough dismissal policy has been established. And once a participant is dismissed, all services from the Office of Illinois Works must be terminated, and that must be indicated in IWRS. A copy of a dismissal letter should be saved in the participant's paper file, as well as uploaded into their IWRS profile. So a dismissal policy and sample dismissal letters are also available in the grantee manual. So, and I just want to highlight again, one last thing is that regardless of why a participant leaves the program, whether it was due to their decision to withdraw or your program's decision to dismiss them, once they leave the program, they cannot receive any additional student support services, wraparound services, transition services, or instructional services unless they rejoin the program. So we just spoke about the wraparound services and student support services. that are hopefully available to prevent individuals from needing to withdraw or being unable to complete the program. Wraparound services are supports that address non-academic needs. These can include an array of options, for example, support with childcare, or transportation. We have to stress that participants must opt into these wraparound services. They cannot be assumed or imposed. They cannot be just provided to everyone in the cohort. And they need to be intentional, right? So these are not supports that should just get them through your program. These should be stepping stones to assist the individuals with self-sufficiency. This model of services challenges participants to think through long-term planning. And the opt-in model requires participants to meet with their wraparound service coordinators one-on-one and establish those services during the program, while planning to address these needs long-term. Again, the goal of these pre-apprenticeship programs is for the graduates to move on to registered apprenticeship programs. And unless those foundations were put in place to allow them self-sufficiency, they're not going to be able to complete apprenticeship programs that don't have continued supportive services, and most do not. The student support services are tailored academic support services. They're designed to meet the participants' needs with the goal of maximizing their ability to be academically successful in the program and obtain the the certificates and credentials of that particular program. So these supports may include tutoring, testing, makeup sessions, among others. And while there might be some services that participants opt into, for example, they may come to you and request specific assistance with math, or specific assistance with reading comprehension, or other specific instruction. Other services, student support services, may be mandatory, such as making up hours for missed courses, or retaking post-assessment exams after failing to achieve a 70% or greater. So sometimes these student support services, again, can be opt-in, and other times they will be mandatory. So we talk a lot about each program having a data entry coordinator. The data entry coordinator is responsible for ensuring all of the program's data is entered into IWRS, the Illinois Works Reporting System, on a timely basis. And that includes, entering participant information at intake, entering programmatic and service data during instruction, entering outcome metrics, and verifying the accuracy of all that data. So we highly stress proper data management. There's an entire section 10, devoted to it in the grantee manual, and I definitely suggest that everyone ensure that their programs have reviewed that information. So the IWRS data entry coordinators are the ones that ultimately set the completion status on either the training modules, I'm marking them as successful completion, unsuccessful completion, or the overall status module or status for the participants. So the data entry coordinators are able to provide information regarding your participants' completion status. Only participants that have successfully completed all the required modules and met attendance and post-assessment metrics can be considered to be successfully complete with the full program. So certainly they would update IWRS accordingly. I think most of you have seen how to do this, but you would go into the participant's profile in IWRS, then to the program completion and follow-up tab, and then you would choose add completion status to update their overall status. The primary options, and there are many available, but the primary options are complete, completed in transition, or incomplete. So complete is a temporary status for an individual who has successfully completed all of the instruction of the program, but has not worked with the transition service coordinator on any transition services. So that means they have not applied to any registered apprenticeship programs. They haven't even had a discussion on a career plan. They haven't been referred to American Job Centers or given individual one-on-one resume assistance or interview assistance, which at least one of those services are required. So that's why complete is a very temporary status. Complete and in transition, on the other hand, is a person that has not only completed the instructional phase of the program, but they have received at least one of those required transition services. So that's the status that your graduates should be attaining. And then incomplete, as we discussed, will be individuals that left the instructional phase of the program early because they needed to withdraw or because your program dismissed them. All right, so that was a recap for many of you. Are there any questions before we proceed to the transition services section of the program?
Okay, Dan, I don't see any questions in the chat.
Excellent. All right, so this is the transition services section where we will identify transition services on that pre-apprenticeship life cycle, discuss the role of the transition service coordinator, explain the critical importance of cultivating those formal and informal relationships and partnerships, leverage career assessment information, update IWRS, describe the role and impact of the primary and second transition goals on the performance-based payment model. And through these objectives, we will ensure that we've answered some of the questions that I think were entered into Mentimeter in terms of things that some of you were looking forward to get out of today's session. So the pre-apprenticeship life cycle that you see here, transition services is step number 8. Transition services are a series of career readiness activities that serve as the final step for participants before progressing to a registered apprenticeship program and employment. The transition service coordinator, and I think in the poll there, that was roughly 50% of our audience today. The transition service coordinator is responsible for ensuring that the career assessments are completed, and there are 2 of them that are required, and the individualized career plans, and we'll discuss really what that is in a moment, are created in coordination with the other program staff to ensure the creation of a current resume, the delivery of career services such as mock interviews or assistance with completing apprenticeship programs, or assistance with paying for apprenticeship program applications, among other things. The transition service coordinator also works with employers, with those DOL Registered Apprenticeship Programs, or other partners to ensure the successful transition of the program graduates. The transition service coordinator also conducts the required post-program active tracking. So it's a follow-up for the graduates. So again, to be clear, that we've mentioned this several times in other trainings, the roles that the Office of Illinois Works defines may not be your actual job title. So your job title may not be transition service coordinator, but rather it's the roles, responsibilities that are fulfilled by individuals. So it's important to keep that in mind. You can find additional information about the TSC role or other roles on pages 56 and 58 of the 2024 Grantee Manual. And Section 8 of the Grantee Manual provides more information on the requirements for the Transition Service Coordinator role. So the success of the pre-apprenticeship program graduates really requires a strong transition component. And that includes a designated staff member or staff members that are responsible for building relationships with employers and registered apprenticeship programs. And I know that was one of the things that was mentioned several times in terms of building relationships with those programs, building relationships with sponsored based programs, a whole host of questions about building relationships. So we'll definitely discuss that here in a moment. So it's important to remember that the transition service coordinators are responsible for those services for the graduates. The TSC is critical to the success of the participants and the program overall. And so the transition service coordinators should be dedicating time throughout the pre-apprenticeship life cycle. And for organizations that hope to renew, intend to go through a NOFO process to continue their work with the Illinois Works pre-apprenticeship program should continue to be building those relationships even after their cohorts for the year have ended. And certainly they're going to continue to follow up with their graduates for at least a year after graduation. So they're going to need to continue to have and extend their relationships with registered apprenticeship programs, unions, contractors, subcontractors, and employers in order to set up the structures and tools and resources for the students when they are ready to transition. And again, that can be any time from, the first week of your training and cohort all the way through, a year or more after graduation. So considering that there's an emphasis on graduation and registered apprenticeship program entry, transition service coordinators need to, think of themselves as relationship builders and coaches and job developers. And to ensure that the outlined deliverables are met, we need to be sure that transition service coordinators have allocated, the correct number or adequate number of hours to ensure that they have, scheduled face-to-face meetings with individual participants to identify their primary goals and secondary career goals through those career assessments. They need to, make sure that they are assisting or hosting partners for transition services and assisting those participants with interview preparation, with resume preparation, all the steps that are going to be required for them to move forward. And certainly, we've talked about maintaining those and developing those relationships with registered apprenticeship programs and contractors and employers. And then finally, conducting follow-ups with the alumni, keeping them involved in the program, both the ones that have found their apprenticeship program and ones that still have not. Keeping in contact with all of those alumni will strengthen your alumni network and program, and that will assist your program in the present day. Excuse me. All right, so the transition services typically is thought of as having two pathways. One is cultivating formal and informal relationships and partnerships in order to fulfill those participant and graduate goals. And then the other is providing support for the participants. So we're going to take a look at the cultivating relationships. So there are formal relationships and informal relationships. It's about successfully implementing transition services in order to build your program and ensure that you have processes and systems for your transition services. Identifying and developing relationships for referrals. So what should you be thinking about when you are cultivating these relationships? Well, one option could be developing formal MOUs, so memorandums of understanding. These are ways in which you can formalize your process or intent with a registered apprenticeship program so that it's a two-way street. And we can talk about some of those tools during our transition service coordinator meetings that we have on a monthly basis. Even provide sample MOUs, but ultimately setting up those relationships will be critical for your program and will ultimately be up to each one of you. So let's stop having me talk this whole time, and let's move to Mentimeter and share with us what types of organizations and institutions you feel that are important to develop relationships with. So we've re-entered the Mentimeter link into the chat, or you can go to menti.com and enter the number 3423380. So it looks like we have probably about 30 people on here.
Dan,
Let's see if we
I have a
can.
question in the chat. Can we hear from grantees that have MOUs with DOL RAPs?
Well, so that might be something, excellent suggestion for our transition service coordinator monthly meetings. So having a couple grantees talk about MOUs or other can't think of the term for it now, but relationships that they've established with some of those registered apprenticeship programs. Yeah, that's an excellent idea. All right, so what type of organizations and institutions should you look to develop a relationship with? So certainly unions, local unions that can provide contractor lists, and the signatory sponsors. So that's kind of one and the same there, right? The the ones that require a signatory, they typically do have lists, and they can provide that with you so that you can go out and contact those contractors on behalf of your program and your graduates, and identify what the requirements are for applying to their companies, or how they how you can better prepare your graduates for job interviews with them, or applying for employment with them. Employers, banks, and community-based organizations. Certainly, other, including non-union registered apprenticeship programs, right? We have unions on there. They make up the bulk of registered apprenticeship programs in Illinois, but we need to make sure that our programs are open. Our graduates have the ability to go to either union or non-union registered apprenticeship programs. And so those are definitely some of the ones that we should be looking for. So thank you. All right. Moving on, it's important to keep in mind that you know the goal is to cultivate these relationships and partnerships, and that is accomplished through consistent and strategic outreach and communication. So, we sometimes refer to those as touches. A touch can be any communication opportunity that helps build and cultivate a positive relationship or partnership with your program. In addition to, face-to-face meetings and phone calls, there are other ways you can communicate with your partners, like, social media posts and newsletters, making sure that they are, part of your blog posts, or they receive any letters or postcards that your organization sends out. So it's important to remember that as you begin to build relationships with um, with these other organizations, that you truly see them as partners, right? And um, and so then your folks that develop your newsletter, whether it's a monthly or quarterly or even annual newsletter. Most organizations will have annual galas or events where you celebrate and do fundraising. It's important to acknowledge your partners there as well. So a lot of times that we forget about that part, to talk to the folks that are in charge of that, and making sure that they're acknowledging some of the registered apprenticeship programs or larger contractors that you've sent some of your graduates to. And they begin to feel that it's a true partnership and that they're contributing to the success of your overall organization. So, do we, I know, Hector had recently asked about MOUs or other ways that we've interacted with registered apprenticeship programs, maybe using the chat. Does anyone want to share any of the ways in which they, have engaged with registered apprenticeship programs, whether it's through MOUs or any of the other touches that we've discussed? Anyone have if you have a unique story that you'd like to share, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. We have time for one or two, I think, if anyone has something that they'd like to share.
Yeah, Dan, we do a lot of visits to their training centers. We also make sure that we schedule at least 3 or more, anywhere like 3 to 5, just really depending on what our participants are looking to do. 3 to 5 speakers come out to each cohort, and just kind of give them a brief overview of different things, um, and then try and get a couple of actual just construction owners, even non-union. I know that's a secondary transition, but we still try and get those, because not everybody, regardless of what the grant really does, there's still times that participants don't want to join a DOL apprenticeship program, right? But they still want that time and training. So we still kind of get a few non-union or non-DOL construction workers, company owners, to come out and speak.
Yeah, thank you, Daryl. And Daryl's with Lewis University. Yeah, those are extremely important, and to remind everyone, you obviously have good relationships with those organizations. You invite them out to meet with your participants. Acknowledging their support after the fact is important as well, right? So, keeping them involved in your successes, and sometimes asking them what they're looking for, right? Maybe just doing a check-in with some of them and saying, hey, how have you thought about, what are your thoughts on some of our participants? We had, 3 people, join your apprenticeship program, or to your point, maybe it's a contractor that is just hiring folks, and they're not ready to go into a registered apprenticeship program, or they're waiting for that window to open, so they want to work in construction in the meantime. Checking in with those contractors and saying, hey, how are our guys working out for you? What skills were they bringing to the table? What maybe were they lacking? And how can we, serve as a better pipeline for you in the future? So keeping that communication going is a two-way street. So that's excellent. Thank you, Daryl. Anyone else have anything they wanted to share?
Yes, this is Kashmir from East Lake County. So we have actually for mock interviews, we have invited some of our like union reps to come and, participate in our mock interviews for our participants of our program. And then of course, when it comes to our newsletters, that's really amazing. They see the success of not just our pre-apprentice program, but our youth build program, just to, explore and give them opportunities for the union as well, and non-union opportunities. And then just with certain employers, when we, seek them out, we give them opportunities for like work experience and, giving them that, insight for a couple weeks at a time before, bringing them on as full-time employees within the construction trade. So that's really big for us. And then, of course, tours, those face-to-face conversations. We have had the opportunity when applications are open. A union rep is, mentions, hey, bring them all in. And so they'll, step by step through the application process in-house.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Kashmir. I mean, that's exactly what we are kind of hoping for. What you described your organization does, and I think that's a excellent role model for some of the other organizations on the call. Certainly, from what I've seen of a lot of your organizations doing, inviting registered apprenticeship programs and contractors to participate in mock interviews. If your organization is not doing that, I think you're really missing out on an opportunity. Not only does it provide real world interview experience for your participants to get them more comfortable with that process, but it also provides them with this unique opportunity. I've heard several grantees mention that they've gotten people hired during those mock interview sessions, and so that's an excellent way of building toward the ultimate goal there. And certainly if you're working with a registered apprenticeship program that requires sponsorship, having those contractors or construction companies participate in your mock interviews are kind of that direct link there to go through that sponsorship program. And then including them in their newsletter. Again, it needs to be a two-way street, right? So not only are they helping you, but then you're acknowledging them and you're providing them with feedback and acknowledgement of how they're helping your overall organization. And you might not think it's necessary, but when those individuals take time out of their day, right, to go and work with your participants in a mock interview setting or something else, they like to be acknowledged, and to see that their organization is being acknowledged overall by your organization is very important. All right, well, thank you both, Kashmir and Daryl, for sharing. All right, so we looked at the relationship side of transition services. Now let's take a look at supporting the participants. So transition services are an essential element of the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program. It's a required element, and it involves arranging activities that expose the participants to the construction industry and help them in applying to registered apprenticeship programs and applying for employment. So you can better prepare your participants by involving them in relevant industry events. Sometimes there are career fairs or trade expos. Sometimes I think every 2 years there's a large construction expo at McCormick, or at least there used to be. I think they still do that. Preparing your participants for applications to the registered apprenticeship programs by making them aware of testing and other entry requirements. And then we've talked a lot about those mock interviews and resume building. So that's on their side of it as well. Not only part of cultivating relationships, but really ultimately it's preparing your participants. So this is a critical part of the transition process, and it can be easy for students to misunderstand the actual career expectations of any profession or even idealize the experience within a profession. um, I always, even within any jobs I've ever had, I discuss this with coworkers, and I've discussed this with potential employees. uh, Even the worst part of your job is still part of your job, right? So making sure that the students understand the full career expectation is important, because otherwise, they can have unfulfilled expectations, disappointment, and they'd be more likely to, drop out of an apprenticeship program, or stop before they've really developed a career, if they came in with unrealistic expectations. So helping participants understand more about their profession, or the profession that they might choose, is more than just sharing, the wage scale or the compensation. It's important to, cover and talk about information about, work schedules, risk, seasonal employment, really covering the day in the life of a particular type of worker is important, so that they can understand all of the expectations. Certainly, we believe in careers in the construction industry. They are life-changing. They can be, generational for people, in terms of providing them not only with that solid income, but with health benefits, and sometimes educational benefits, and retirement benefits, and it really can change the trajectory of an entire family. But that all being said, uh, it's not easy, right? And you have to be a dedicated employee, and you have to do what's expected of you. So helping manage those expectations can really support long-term success. All right. So we believe that these transition services can assist in preparing the students, and we do that by utilizing several transition processes. The first is the orientation career assessment. Then we talk about transition services goals and the transition service plan. So grantees should be developing a transition service plan or transition plan, based on the orientation career assessment that the participants completed at orientation. So it outlines the trades that the participant is interested in, their job readiness needs. And when we talk about this plan, what we're talking about is entering services into IWRS under the transition services goal. And then by having these services in each participant's profile, it will allow transition staff, whether it's the transition service coordinator or caseworkers or instructors, to see and understand what help the participants need as they move from this pre-apprenticeship program to becoming an apprentice. So can we go to the next slide here? There we go. So we talked about this orientation career assessment. There's a copy of this in the 2024 grantee manual, exhibit number 5. And it's really important to understand how this is used. Again, it's used to develop an initial programming idea, understand who you should be inviting, to come and speak to your participants, or maybe what tours you should be arranging, or what job sites you should be going to, based on cohort 1 versus cohort 2 as an aggregate, but also understanding, if there's an individual that's interested in a particular registered apprenticeship program that's going to be open soon. Those are the types of things that you need to be aware of. So that's the orientation career assessment. The second assessment is the pre-transition career assessment. It is identical in the questionnaires to the orientation career assessment. However, instead of being conducted on the first day, the second career assessment is conducted 3 to 4 weeks prior to the end of instruction. So this captures any changes in interests or identifies any existing gaps in job readiness. And the transition service coordinator is expected to meet one-on-one with each participant to complete this second career assessment. So whereas the orientation career assessment was filled out by the participant on their own, on paper, and should be retained in their paper file, the pre-transition career assessment is done on a one-on-one basis with the transition service coordinator, and it really finalizes. It's used as the guide to finalize their transition plan. And it needs to be entered directly into IWRS during that meeting. So when we look at IWRS, we can see the different goals that are listed under what the system calls the career plan. And we talk about training services, wraparound services, student support services, and then of course, transition services. And so based on the initial orientation career assessment, and then especially that pre-transition career assessment, the transition service coordinator must go into each participant's profile and add transition services to their transition goal. This is done by going into the same tab that you see here. It's called the Training Services tab, but there's a sub tab called Add Step/Service. And then you'll be able to select from all of the services that are available and specifically select the transition service that is relevant to that participant. So transition services in IWRS may include, but are not limited to, providing career information, mentoring. I'm not going to read all of these, but we spoke about assistance with completing an apprenticeship program application before. This is probably the most common transition service. So I'm going to repeat that again. Assistance with completing an apprenticeship program application is the most common transition service. In fact, anytime a primary transition document is uploaded, this service must be added to the transition goal and marked as successful completion. So they should be hand in hand, one in one. So if you know you're uploading a primary transition document, you must also be adding this as a goal, as a service that is successful completion. So looking at this list, just really quickly in chat, are there any other transition support services that your organization provides? And it may be that, these are the ones that your organization provides, but let me know if there's something else, if anyone has anything in addition.
Okay, Hector says that there's extra training and certs.
So as a transition service, what do you mean by that, Hector?
Well, we offer different certifications to bolster up their resume. Sometimes when employers do reach out to us, they'll say, "Hey, we need somebody with an OSHA 30, not an OSHA 10." We'll be able to offer like an OSHA 30 throughout the year, at no cost to them, and then that's an extra just an extra bolster on their resume. Um, and then we also offer different certifications and trainings that we do. So like for a NAPSEP or a CMPM.
Oh, that's interesting. So that's a great way of leveraging other non-Illinois Works funding or other programs that your organization offers to, really tailor your graduates to the needs of the employers or registered apprenticeship programs that you're building relationships with. So that's an excellent example. Thank you. And uh, one of the things that I know we talk about, but we probably don't stress enough, is ensuring that resume is as relevant and current as possible. So, you kind of hit the nail on the head there with making sure that, if they need this on their resume, that, that they have that service. A lot of folks come in and that orientation career assessment, it asks if they have a resume, right? And so a lot of them might say yes, but that resume may not be a construction focused resume. And even if they have a great resume as they enter this program, when they finish this program, that resume needs to be updated to include the fact that, then they, through the Illinois Works at the very least, that they've received their first aid CPR, their OSHA 10, and their, NCCR core or MC3 or whatever other certificate that they have, and then that they are now, Illinois Works bid credit and apprenticeship initiative, eligible. So definitely making sure that resume is updated at the very end, is something that's important.
Very. So we do have another question, Dan, from Tawana, and she says, when we attend tours, should we enter provided career information?
So if the tour is something, the short answer is no. So if the tour is something that is done as part of the work-based learning, as something part of the instruction, then it's part of the instruction. It's not,